We are live. Time is 7 o'clock. Time to call to order our regularly scheduled school board meeting for December 5th, 2022. We have a roll call, please.
Mullins,
Here.
Noble,
Here.
Wagers, here, Wagner, here, Dunn.
Here. Please join me for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On our agenda, we have an opportunity for the public to be heard, but there are some guidelines to that. You do have to sign in order to be on the agenda for that. And seeing no one has signed in, we'll move on to an opportunity for us to give some and some celebration towards some people who have done great things here in our school district. So I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Mike Mullins.
So I thank you. You know, it's really cool that we get to do something like this. You gave me way too many things. I'm gonna ask Brittany to help me.
Help you.
We can you can pass the cards out and all this. We got that. We're gonna move on this side because there's so many of us tonight. We got, let me set this down. Okay, we got state champions. We have a state champion team that's with us tonight, and that's exciting. The OSSAA one act play for 2022 is Charles Page High School. That is so special. I'm gonna say, so what we're going to do is we're going to recognize the cast members and the extras and the workers and everybody. And what we've got for them is a Sandite Spirit Award. I'm going to read this first, then we can all come out and we'll get them one at a time. But we want to recognize everyone. And what this is, the Sandite Spirit Award. This certificate is awarded to, and it's got each one of us name on it, for outstanding achievements and accomplishments in representing Sand Springs Public Schools and the community at large. It says think beyond. And I can promise you, I know Miss Campfield, and she does things right. And she would not put on a play with such a astute group of people if we weren't thinking right and thinking beyond and going above and beyond. So state champions, what a deal. That is so special. So special. And we also have, and we've got a gift card from Schlotsky's. So lunch tomorrow on 100% starting. So please, and Miss Campfield, come and join us, please, because you may want to say something about these kids or something. Rusty says, got to hurry, but I want to make sure that they all get recognized in their special way. So we're going to call them up one at a time, and then we'll all come up here, and then we'll get a picture made and all this stuff. The first one is Parker Gelstorp. Very nice. Very nice. Ivy Chronister. Okay.
This is Ivy's brother. Oh.
You can take it. We're trusting you now. Reese Ward. Good. Very nice. Elijah Chronister. Very nice. Arwen Clark. And I'm going to ask one of you at the end to kind of give us just a little bit of story about what this took to do. Destiny Lightliner.
They're not here today.
Not here. Okay.
I'll take that card.
Yeah, watch him. Bella DiArmo. The stage manager, I understand. Another stage manager, Avery Miller. Sound, Malachi Chronister. Lights, Brantley Duncan.
I'm not here.
Not here. Okay. Extra CJ Gwynn. Not here. And if I pronounce the names wrong, that is totally me. Onyx Sorensen.
Not here today. Sorry.
Andrea's got a lot to take back. You guys watch her now. She got all these gift cards. Lily Evans.
Not here today. Either. Oh my.
Don Miller. There we go. Alex Booth. Diamond Beck.
Not here.
Out here. Zoe Rogers.
We're waiting for Whoppers.
It's gotta be you, Noah.
Yeah.
And now we got to skid it so we get a picture made. And like I say, I want somebody, as we're doing that, to kind of tell a little bit the story about this championship that we got.
Well, we started this season, kind of heavy hearted. We had, a hard start to our school year, as you well know. So we decided to, choose a, lighthearted, one act piece. And so I let the students read a little play that we had picked up at One Act Festival. We go to, or not One Act Festival, excuse me, Thespian Festival. We go to internationals every summer. And we always pick up a ton of scripts. So in reading over these scripts, it was a very cute little one and very lighthearted, and they absolutely loved it. So we made an agreement as a group that we were just going to go in this. We were going to throw ourselves into character work. It's called the Exceptional Childhood Center. And so these kids got to play preschoolers, and they had a ball with it. And we never thought that we would do as well as we did. So when we got to, we were awarded second place in our regional, and we got to state. And as anybody knows, beating Choctaw is always the thing to do.
Here.
So Choctaw, if you walk into the halls of Choctaw Theater, it is papered with all of the one act winnings that they have had over the years. And so I knew that they were very strong. They just did a beautiful job. And the one act, the majority, the 75 to 100 points is for acting. And so we worked very hard the week before the show and took all the judges' commentary from the previous show and applied it. And I mean, they just brought it home. It was fabulous. And so with that little show that we were just having fun with, we won a state championship. And I'm so, so proud of them. And those of you that were our all-staters, if you could step out, Parker and Reese and
I didn't get all state.
oh, they did.
Oh, only them too.
Or we got it in region.
Two regionals. Okay, sorry. They have so many words. I can't keep up with you. These two guys got all state cast at a state competition. And we finished with, we only missed 6 points out of 300. So we finished with 294 points out of 300. And so very, very proud of them.
Good job.
Cool.
Can I go ahead and do mine?
It's related. It's related.
Yes. Okay, and then Mrs. Canfield was nominated by Mr. Bivin. He says, for the point of excellence, Andrea Campfield and CPHS Drama Department won the 2022 OSSAA One Act Play State Championship. Yeah, I'm not sure when the last time CPHS won a state championship, but it's definitely been a while. Andrea works tirelessly to provide her students an opportunity to compete at the highest level. Her focus and dedication is apparent to everyone who she comes in contact with. CPHS and drama students are extremely lucky to have her on our side. Way to go, Andrea.
All right.
Thank you. So can I just add, if you don't mind, Andrea also stepped up to do debate this year as well.
Yes.
Because we were in a pinch, and I know that's hard because it's an add-on and it's a lot of time and a lot of effort, and I just want to say thank you. publicly for being willing to step up for my ability that we need. So I appreciate that.
So quick question. So I'm familiar, like obviously athletics, they get a state champion ring. Is there something that each?
Well, I
state-
was looking at, for you guys to,
What do they do normally? Is there something like that they normally? do?
no, we got we should have brought it. We got a gold trophy with the state of Oklahoma embedded in it. And instead of putting the title on it, we're just gonna put We Beat Choctaw. But yes, we have a meeting.
Something for each student. Yeah, I was just thinking. about it.
So that, this, did you guys get anything? Yeah, they got
They're
the,
all state, sure.
yeah, so, but we just got the group trophy, but it's team sport. So we celebrate together and we share what we got.
Love it. You guys are awesome.
So I'm gonna make you guys gather for like a picture that.
We have to get all put together.
Yes. All things in the back.
Sorry, bullets, and if you like, good.
Y'all go. Okay.
All right. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Fantastic.
That's excellent. Well, so students and those who have come to support them as well, this is a time where we're going to move into kind of the business portion of our meeting tonight. And you're welcome to stay. It's going to be so fun. Looking at audits and all kinds of good stuff. But if you'd like to leave, we understand. Have homework, things to take care of.
Well, so
Oh,
much.
this is fun. Way to go, guys.
Bye-bye.
It's gonna be something, right? We're gonna move to that very thing that I just mentioned, our review and acceptance of our audit by Bledsoe, Hewitt and Gleason.
So you have a copy that is digital, then also hard copy as well. So I'm gonna turn it over if you don't mind.
You want me to go to the podium? You want me to sit
You can
here?
just address the board from where you're at. That was good. Well, to you.
You're good. Like you stand at attention.
Next time, maybe put the audit first so the kids can stay and maybe.
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea.
Not all these people showed up for the audit presentation.
They don't do that, actually, yeah.
I want to start off by apologizing for my deans. I was at a rural water district today, and usually when we go to rural water districts, we dress a little down. So I didn't realize till I was in the car coming over here that I was wearing my jeans, so I apologize for that. Might make a note in the minutes that I wore jeans.
Oh, you needed here, I was saying.
I'm just jealous.
This is your 21-22 fiscal year audit. My name's Eric Bledsoe. I'm with Bledsoe here in Gulfson. I was one of them that, I believe I came in the spring and I came in the summer and helped with the estimate needs. And then another group came in the fall to finish up the actual audit report itself. So I'll start over on page 14. Page 14 is a good one because it kind of describes in summary form the letters, the 3 letters that precede it. The first letter is on the independent auditors report, and anytime a CPA firm does an audit of any kind of company or corporation or government or anything, you always have to issue an independent auditors report. And then in that report, you state your opinion on the financial statements. So that's what we do on number 1. It's nice and very cloudy and very wordy here. And, you start off with an adverse opinion, which in the accounting world is not a good thing. But it's an adverse opinion because of the style of accounting that you all use is not generally accepted anymore. It's kind of an old school basis of accounting, kind of a cash basis, budget basis of accounting. But that's the prescribed basis of accounting that the State Department of Education has asked you to use and then put your financial statements in. So it's nothing that's really in your control. The other thing on there is general fixed asset account group that qualifies it also. We We have a couple of schools that have this information, but it is a very daunting task. And it costs a lot of money to get one number to put on your financial statements that, because when school started a long time ago, they said, just expense it every year. You're part of the state. Don't worry about tracking your fixed assets. Well, then they came back later when they changed all the government accounting rules, and they said, you ought to know what all your fixed assets are worth, which is true, but nobody had a starting place anymore at that time. So a couple things that really weren't in your control. Number 2 and number 3 is the second letter. I talked about the independent audit report. Every audit has that. Every audit that is a government has to have the second letter, which is a government auditing standards letter. And in that, they want specific reporting on internal controls and on compliance with statutes and laws. And so that's what we talked about in number 2 and number 3. You all have really good internal controls in place. Any kind of transaction that we look at, there's a really good audit trail, and there's always more than one person involved in any transaction, which is all a real good thing from an audit standpoint. And compliance, there was no major material issues on, there weren't any immaterial items on compliance that we had to report about. And then 4 through 9 is the federal government. They want their own report talking about the federal money and how internal controls and compliance were handled on the federal funds that you all have. Anytime you expend more than $750,000 of federal money, you have to do what's called a single audit act audit. You all obviously spend more than $750,000. So where you have to go in and do compliance work on some of the federal programs, and that's what number 7 talks about. The programs that we determined to be major were the COVID-19 stabilization fund programs, which is your like ESSER money, and then the Title I programs. So those were your 2 of your bigger programs. So those are the ones that we looked at in detail to make sure everything complied. We look at all the federal programs, but those are the biggest at this time. Section 2 and Section 3 is where you would have any findings, and you always want that 4-letter word there. No, I think you did all right. Now I'm going to take over to page 17. Page 17 shows your general fund and what happened to it in the 21-22 fiscal year. If you look at that third column over, that actual column, you can see that you brought in $39.6 million. And we always try to put in the last column over there on the right, the prior year, because financial statements are no good unless you have a prior year to compare them to. So the revenues collected was 39.6. Last year, they were 34.7. So your revenue went up $4.9 million. Then your expenditures went from 35.9 up to $40.2 million. So your revenue went up 4.9 and your expenditures went up 4.3. Expenditures are going to go up every year, no matter what. We all know how that is in life. But hopefully your revenue will always stay consistent and go up also. It doesn't always in school finance. And that's always the importance of fund balance, is those years when you don't have that extra revenue to come in. So bottom line, after some adjustments and things, you ended up spending about $515,000 more than you brought in, which for you all is basically you were consistent. You stayed about the same. $515,000 is less than a 2% change for you all. So you all, the last couple of years, were able to stay pretty consistent in your spending on the general fund. Your fund balance went from 6.1 down to $5.6 million. And that's not really a big drop at all. And we don't tell you all where you should be fund balance wise. That's a local school board issue, and you all should be deciding your comfort level there. We just say, please have something, because there's always going to be years when the funding doesn't come in the way they promise. And that's usually what the fund balance is there for. So after that, I'm going to take a
Question on that.
You bet.
Are there some statutory requirements that we cannot be too much in this?
Yes.
And we're well within that limit?
I'm looking at it real quick. I'm sure you are. Those have been suspended for the next couple of years because of all the ESSER funding and all the COVID money. They've taken away the the fund balance penalties until after June 30th, 2024. So, they realize a lot of schools are gonna have a lot of fluctuation in these next couple of years with that ESSER money, so they've taken that out for a couple of years. But yeah, you're right, there are fund balance.
14% for us right now, and I still do track that every month. That's what I provide to the superintendent.
Well, and even prior to COVID, we were still well within the fund balance cap, even before they implemented the new law. So I've never really worried about that, and we've actually dropped a little bit. I know we've talked about that before in regard to not getting back money we spent that are one-time expenditures because of the ESSER money. And so it'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out. We're all finished spending, but I'm not worried about it.
Another good thing about that is they let you take off your federal revenue from that computation. So that usually gets most schools under that exceeded maximum. I'm going to take you past all the notes and things over to page 42. And I'll promise your audience I'm just about done. Page 42, we just went over the general fund, which is the big guy, where most of the operations are takes place. Page 42 shows your special revenue funds, which is funds that are earmarked for specific purposes. For you all, you have the building fund, the co-op fund, and the child nutrition fund in 21-22. Your building fund brought in $1,477,000. One thing I'll point out here is you're able to put interest earnings in your building fund, which is great. A lot of school districts have to put that in the general fund to sustain their balances and things, and that's good that you can put that in the building fund and help that fund out. So you brought in 1.477. You spent about a little under 2 million, so you spent a little more of your building fund than you brought in. But you can't build a lot of things these days for $1 million. So if you can do repairs and maintenance, a couple of salaries, it's about all you can get out of the building fund. But you got a nice, healthy fund balance there in your building fund. Co-op fund, I believe that's the Title II and III programs, the math and language programs. Usually a co-op fund will end the year at zero. That's always the goal of it, because you bring that money in and you disperse it out to the different areas. And it's usually a timing deal, is why it doesn't always hit zero exactly at June 30th. And then your child nutrition fund, you brought in $3.1 million and you spent about 2.5. And so you're about $500,000 over on child nutrition fund. One good thing about, probably the only good thing about the pandemic was they changed the reporting requirements for child nutrition funds, and you were able to claim every meal, and you were able to get that federal reimbursement in these past couple of years. So child nutrition funds got a little healthier the past couple of years. Of course, it doesn't take long to get those back down again, but if you can just break even on a child nutrition fund, you're doing pretty well. So you all have a nice fund balance there to get whittled down over the next few years. Now I'm going to take you over to page 48. Page 48 and 49 shows all your sub-accounts for your student activity funds. Bottom line on that, you began the year with $1.2 million. Your additions, your revenue, your fundraisers was 1.906. Your deductions were about 1.8 million. Expenditures was about 1.8 million. So you need to be with about $1.3 million in activity funds that were available. It's incredible when you think about $2 million going through those accounts and all those sponsors doing it and all the kids out there. It's a lot of responsibility out there. So what you can look at as a board member at the end of the year is your additions and deductions should be pretty close to each other. And that tells you that your sponsors are raising that money and they're spending it on that year's group of kids. Last few years, it's kind of been off a little bit for a lot of schools because of the pandemic and things getting back to normal. But yours are within like 5.5% of each other. And if you're under, 10%, then you're well within the acceptable range. So that tells you your sponsors are doing a pretty good job. After that, on page 51 and 52, I'll actually take you over to page 52 is your federal schedule. This is the one we do for the State Department and also for the federal government. Shows all your federal programs, how much was awarded, how much revenue was collected, how much was expended. Bottom line on that, you had a little over $8 million in federal revenue collected, and you spent $8.4 million of federal expenditures. And then that last column is actually money that you expended and you claimed, but you didn't get it till after June 30th. And in school accounting, it's not revenue till you actually receive it. So that's revenue for this year. And then after that, it's just a couple of other miscellaneous items. And then the very last page is the letter to the superintendent, which would show any immaterial items. And for Jeff Hewitt to not give you any immaterial items, you all must be doing a pretty good job. Like I said, I was one of them that came and did some of the work, and you all had some transition in your business office, and but it really looks like the powers that be now are doing a good job. Have things running great. You had some change at the top, but your day-to-day people were all pretty constant, and they've always done a really good job, and they seem to really take it to heart and really try to do a good job all they can. So we appreciate all their work, and I'll take any questions if you got any now.
So I understand something, I'm on page 5, and I think you answered, but I just want to make sure, because the qualified opinion on regulatory basis of accounting, it says, in our opinion, except for, that is what you described in that first.
That was the qualification on the fixed assets.
What other people do.
Yeah, well, the qualification, the except for, was because you didn't have the fixed asset information that go on the actual financial statements. It's confusing. That first letter, which is now 3 pages long, used to be 3 paragraphs long and about a half a page. Now it's 3 pages long.
It should be at the back. That's the first thing that I read.
Bad news first.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Thank you for the work there. Team, thank you for all your work making that happen. Letting us look good. So, fantastic. So I think we would need a motion to approve or accept this audit.
I'll make a motion to accept the audit by Bledsoe Hewitt and Erickson.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? We'll call for a vote.
Mullen.
Aye.
Noggle.
Aye.
Wagers.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Gann.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Anybody want to take a picture with the auditor?
Thank you.
I'm bidding on.
All right, moving on to our discussion and review of instructional strategies dealing with our student empowerment staff.
So I would request that we start with finance this time, because we do have Zach Robbins and here from UK Financial, who's taken the time to drive up from Oklahoma City. I wanted to publicly have an opportunity for you to hear him just a little bit and give him his perspective about where we are. Zach's been a couple of meetings with us and did a great job presenting kind of some alternatives for our next bond issue. As you guys know, our plan is to shoot for the spring of 24 to hit some pretty major needs in our district. And so Zach's super impressive, had a mutual connection with Miss Newby, which was weird and fantastic all at the same time. And then I gotta say, I did not tell him where the board meeting was tonight. And so he showed up and I said, and think about how did you found us? He goes, well, and so his comment was, if I couldn't find your board meeting, then maybe we didn't need to do business together. I'm super impressed with Zach. And so I'm gonna start.
I did find it.
Yeah. So,
Changed a lot since he played quarterback at Oklahoma.
right, it's true. That's
you.
yes.
I was on the golf team at OSU the same time he was on the football team at OSU.
Oh.
So my senior year was his freshman year. We crossed paths in the weight room, and surprisingly, people didn't mix us up. So,
Yeah.
it's one important.
That's awesome.
So just kind of for clarity and transparency, I think publicly, Our contract with our bond consultant typically hits the board agenda in December. And Christy and I have spent a few hours talking through our past consultant and then spending some time with Zach. And so we took it off the December agenda, quite frankly. I wanted you to have a chance to meet him. He's done phenomenal. I actually had an interview kind of session with him back in 2019 when we were planning our bond before. We stuck with our current consultant at that time, but I really want you to hear that likely this is going to be the recommendation for the January meeting for contract agreement. So I wanted you to have a chance to meet him, and Zach, I'm just going to turn it over to you if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the kind words. It's great to be here. I have known you for a few years, and I really appreciate the chance to work on this with you, and hopefully have a chance to work with you. And bond planning is a long-term process, and I was well versed in the district from 2018, 2019. So I've already spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out some paths that we can take to get you where you're trying to go. I always say with all of my clients I work with, all over the state, that it's not a one size fits all. It's what you need and what meets your needs the best way possible. So we've been looking at several options where we can kind of look at what you're trying to do from a project need perspective and how we're going to fund those projects. We can do an upfront funding piece to get money now for certain items. We also want to ensure that on a recurring basis you've got funds coming in each year to do certain things like equipment or HVAC, transportation. And so we really want to figure out what projects need to be funded from each of those pots. And then ultimately, what I always try to do is look at multiple options that we can assess to figure out how we're going to get the most money for your projects. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to squeeze as much money out of what we can for your patrons. And so, would you like to see here kind of some of the very, very early, I guess, estimates that we've been looking at that help you? I don't know if you've seen anything yet, or would you like to hear those? Sure. So we are currently looking at maintaining the target levy at the same rate as it has been. So no change there in our target levy for the sinking fund. And in some of the early discussions, we've looked at trying to fund certain amount of needs. It's looked like at this point approximately a 12-year plan. So issuing a series of bonds over a 12-year plan, slightly longer than the last plan, but again, it's need-based and it's very early. And so that's certainly not set in stone in any way, shape, or form, but approximately a 12-year plan. Looking at those numbers, and we're going to get a new valuation in August, so this is going to change. Okay, we'll get a new net assessed valuation in August. But some of the numbers that we've been looking at for the upfront funding piece, those early projects, those more capital intensive projects, is 23 to 27 million, which that funding would be available about 4 months after the bond election. So if we had something kind of an early 24 election, by the summer of 24, you're getting that large pot of money in for those immediate upfront capital projects. Okay. And then over the life of the 12 years, we fund those recurring needs annually. And so they aren't realized up front, they're, annually, but they aggregate up to approximately 35 to 40 million in total recurring projects. So that's anywhere from, 58 to 67 million in projects to be funded over the course of that 12 years. What I will say is what I like about these early numbers is that you're putting a lot of money into the recurring category. And what that does is that gets you the most bang for your buck as far as being able to spend money on projects and not on interest costs. And so what we're really trying to do here is minimize the interest cost and get the most money for our projects. And so as we go over the course of the year and we get a new valuation in, we will look at, identifying the needs that we have, ultimately figuring out what we want to fund and how we want to fund them and what the best way to fund them is, so that ultimately we're getting the most money for our projects. So that's where things are, I think, at this point, very, very early. But again, what I like to do, if you can't tell, is run a lot of hypothetical scenarios and really talk through the pros and cons, because you've got a lot of ways to get to the same place. but we want to get there the most efficient way that we can for the taxpayers. And that's our plan.
This is very preliminary, and just know when we start talking about bond issues, it's a year or more, over a year planning. And so that was an easy learn the first time around. And so we're starting very early. I've expressed some projects that I think will be key for sure. And Clyde Boyd Middle School is always the one that glares at people. We did a little bit of work there, but this summer, not near enough. And that was just an element to just get us over the hump of making it tolerable, honestly. So there are more to come, but questions for Zach, because he's brilliant. And I think at one point in the meeting, Zach, you said, if you can't tell, I kind of nerd out on the numbers, which he does a little bit, but I love it because so do I. And so we're kind of two peas in a pod in that regard. And it's phenomenal. So any questions?
If you have an election in 2024 and it's for 12 years, there won't be another bond issue election for another 12 years?
No.
No, go ahead.
So the item would be, remember Northwoods rolls off
Right.
in 24. And so the way the 9-year bond was set up back in 19, it rolls off in 27. And so we'll take advantage of those pieces when we can. So in our district, we have to do those long range planning with tax collections, because if we didn't, there's no way we would have enough money to do those big projects that are so needed.
Yeah, I think I'll add to that. You can usually come back sooner than the end of the plan that you're in. Kind of layer on the new plan over an existing plan. You have to have some things that you plan for at the beginning of that first one, but it's not uncommon for school district to come back with something before the prior plan is over and still be able to get to the next phase of projects sooner than at the full completion of the prior plan.
Which is what we're doing now.
What we do
Because
with the two that we've already had in place.
right, so if you think about our current plan that built the freshman academy, it's not done yet. But we're already talking about a bond issue that will yield a significant amount of money that will allow us to do some pretty phenomenal things. So it's a great plan. And the other beauty of it is we're talking a no tax increase plan. So it's good. I mean, it means the needs that we have, which are pretty imperative. Not that I try to be competitive with other people, but I'm a little competitive. And so it is good though to keep track and keep up with our neighbors, which is the Tulsa region. And so,
State champions if we're just here tonight.
right, exactly. So I just think that's highly important for the promotion of our district. So anyway, any more questions for Zach?
Each springtime, we bring in McDonald and Associates and they sell these bonds for us because we've been doing that forever and ever and ever. If we switch to BOK, right?
Yes, sir.
If we still have to have the McDonald group finish what they have started with us. We can just transfer those whenever we say BOK is our man.
I've done that for several other school districts actually, where it's in the middle of a plan. I mean, I have the resolution. I know exactly what you're funding and how, and the bond issuance process is state law, which I do for other school districts. It's a very standard, process. So there's absolutely no issue in completing your old plan in any way.
One of my first I asked that question. He came prepared. The first meeting was a booklet with all of our bond sinking fund numbers. And so he knew exactly. And I said that, well, would we need to continue? He said, I'd prefer you not to, because then he takes his expertise and moves forward with his plan versus kind of playing the gap. And it's not a good place to be, we don't think.
You have help at BOK, because I'll be honest with you, McDonald Associates have had some changes in their personnel. That's one of the reasons you're standing in front of us today. So there's other people just like you at BOK that.
Yes, sir, there are. But I was only a golfer.
You wear the orange stuff too, that makes a couple of things. Yeah.
But just our point, I mean, we did meet back in 2018 and I respected that choice. I really wanted to work with you guys. So when she, contacted me again, I was extremely prepared and want to have the chance to work with you. And I think if you contact any of the schools that I work with, my goal is to have you get where you're trying to go financially, as easily as possible. And so I really would enjoy the chance to work with you guys on this.
Are you in Tulsa?
Oklahoma City. Yes, sir. Yeah, the home office is in Tulsa, and I think actually our firm has a branch office in Sand Springs in BOK building. I'm the financial services firm under the BOK umbrella. So we have offices all over the region, but I'm downtown Oklahoma City, but I cover the whole state.
Any questions? Because you know that this is gonna be a recommendation. I'm gonna be super honest about that at the January meeting. So, well, give you some time to think about it, but I also have been prepping you guys also, and I think it's helpful to have met that person that's gonna be, you know, handling that much revenue.
And I would assume too, Superintendent, that we pay a fee to him for that.
Absolutely.
That fee is comparable to what that's been seen.
Zach, you want to address that? Because it's pretty, yes.
I would like to think it's comparable, if not slightly less than what you've been paying in the past. And I feel pretty strongly in that regard, just based on history and experience in what I do. I don't believe you'd be paying anymore.
So Zach, so we are going to be looking for contract proposal for, okay.
You got it. Yeah, I'll send you everything that you need.
Any other questions?
Doubling back on.
Yeah, I just know
That's funny. I didn't. I don't go that far.
It's in the car, actually.
A lot of respect for this process.
That says, for example, I promise you will let them.
Appreciate your comment, appreciate you pursuing, in a sense, what we're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank
Nice
you.
meeting you. Thank you.
you can stay if you'd like, or you don't have to stay. I figured you would. Okay, so if you want to
Move back to.
back to number 7, yes. Just a couple of things really to talk about. We're getting close to Christmas break, and so things really do start winding down, but I have to, and Karen, let's just speak just a little bit, but OSCE got a grant for service to special needs children that's going to provide professional development strategies, but really it's about Slay Huber that pursued, so.
Well, this is really going to be an opportunity. We do a really great job of doing multi-tiered support for students for academics and for behavior. But this professional development piece is going to add in a component to really help a lot of our entry year, second year, third year teachers so that they have a grasp of what we're trying to do. We are certainly seeing behavior challenges on the rise across the nation in school districts. And so this is really just a response to that, I think. And so it's going to give people an opportunity to have some really good strategies in place so that they can take care of those situations in the classrooms.
And they'll onboard other districts, one out of 2.
We're one of the first 2 that they're piloting it, yes. And so then I think next year they'll add 2 more. So pretty exciting.
The other piece of news in student successes is really about the A3F report card. I reported to you guys via email a few weeks ago that the preliminary blush was an A, B, and the rest C's. Mr. Roder confirmed that the grades are actually back up. We went through a period of checking to make sure all the calculations were correct. That was done, and
That ends on the 7th.
right. And I don't know when they'll release those. Again, I go back to, I guess that's good information. I kind of poo-pooed a little bit, and you guys know that. But we'll be coming back as soon as the second benchmark is done and really digging deep into performance by our new NWEA benchmark. Much like the Ames Web, we changed the assessment tool that we're using. And so you'll see how we design those. There are also norm reference, but how you can see growth perspective from beginning of year to mid-year, which gives you a truer picture, I think, of how our kids are actually doing, and guides teacher intervention as well, more than just springtime, one-time assessment that drives the A3F report card. So that's to come. So that really does conclude the academic.
I'm sorry, but how's the esports thing going?
So Sean, that's a great question for you. They did
They participated in a tournament at the Oklahoma State or the Oklahoma Society for Technology and Education Conference. And needless to say, they did a wonderful job comparatively considering the way the tournament was run. We had some kids that from certain schools that showed up late and that caused certain brackets to not run concurrently, but our kids were there on time and our kids won every bracket that they were in. So that was a good first showing for our kids, and then they're continuing to take part in the league they're with.
They had them on this week, Sean.
They did?
Yeah, they had the jerseys on.
They got the uniforms.
That's the first I've heard of.
I saw them in the hallway.
I'm gonna be calling somebody tomorrow. I'm upset. That's on you.
All the equipment's working good,
Everything's working great.
good,
Yeah, kids are doing great. They're loving it and they're performing well.
awesome.
Good.
Very
Really good. So that conclude any other questions about
I
students?
need to go, yeah, I need to go.
Do you need- Well, we're gonna, I guess we have jerseys now. Need a photo.
All right, we'll move to item number 9, talking about empowering families and communities. Or do you want to cover something else in it?
Well, so the only thing I would say is number 8 is the finance strategy. And I know we did the bond issue. The only thing I would add to that conversation, if you don't mind, is just another mention of inflation. You guys, it's a real thing. And we're navigating it fine. I am not worried about the drop in fund balance, by the way, because we have taken some one-time expenses on. So I really need the public and you all to hear me say that's not a concern. However, inflation just keeps creeping, and I'm hoping we get to a place where we plateau and we see kind of the end of that cycle. But it's a real thing. And again, that Vernon Florence OASA newsletter expresses that. So that really is it for.
Also, Sherry, with this year, with the increased enrollment, we're gonna see a little bit more revenue.
Right, so, yes, and so we're up in comparison to our annual statistical report from June, about 200 kids, which means that translates into higher mid-year adjustment. So that usually comes out mid-January. It was a little bit late last year. We just certified first quarter statistical, and I know there were a lot of districts that were, the systems weren't talking very well from districts to the State Department. So that was a little late. So I'm wondering if maybe that midterm adjustment will also be a little bit late. We'll see. But yes, it should yield additional monies from state aid.
So this year we're charging for lunches this year,
We're charging for the, oh, yeah,
for lunch this year.
right. And our team has done a really good job, I think, getting the forms back in. If you'll recall, last year, we were on the brink of having to ask for a waiver for Title I because we had hit that 34.5% at Angus and Pratt. And so this year I looked at the numbers, we're back up above 50, closer to 60. And most of our sides, and of course Garfield Northwoods are a little bit even higher than that. So I think our team's done a really great job getting parents and families to fill those out and get them back in. But yes, we're charging.
So was the backpack program going on through this whole time? Or did we,
Yeah,
that was all the free lunches?
well, the backpack program is supported through like the local church network. And so
Right.
it continued the whole time, and they do that. That'll continue.
Yeah, I'm just, but I mean, I guess my concern is now that we're paying for lunches, you know, for kids that are
Right,
hopefully still get to eat.
right, exactly. Well, yes.
I mean, we went 2 years with everybody eating.
Right.
So,
Right. It's a little bit of a transition because I don't think, even though as much as you publish it, you push it out and say, remember, notes home, people still, it doesn't resonate till it's the pocketbook. So there were some families that didn't sign up in time, we went to back bill and that kind of thing, but I think we're over that hump of people going, oh, okay, we're back to normal again. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Item number 9, empowering families and communities.
So it won't be long till we'll start putting together a bond committee, much like we did last year with some parents, community members, to really get feedback on what we're proposing. I want to make sure that our community sees those needs as well. Our goal is to really touch every side and every student, to try to figure out a way that everyone benefits from a bond plan. So that's going to happen pretty quickly next semester in the spring. And then we're starting to plan on the calendar. So here we go. I think we have 2 renditions that are going to be acceptable to most people. I promised to send out a survey this week to our staff to say, hey, do you like draft one or draft two better before we present to the board? Again, this is early. We don't have to approve the school calendar until March, but it's always good to get a start on it. So that's happening now as well.
Very good. Any other questions or discussion around that? Now we'll move to health and safety.
So again, that must be Bond Central, but it is for sure, because again, we're in the planning stage. A couple things that we know are gonna need some funds would be security panels for access control. That's been on the radar for a while. And then fire panels are something that we're gonna have to address, it's just some systems that we need to start reviewing. We are hoping to utilize some of the last piece of ESSER or actually money to go ahead and fit the elementaries with security cameras. If we don't have enough of those funds left over, then likely that's also going to be a bond ask. Those cameras that we refit with our secondary sites are a hit. They're just so much better than our antiquated systems. So once you do that with a couple of sites, everybody else is really chomping at the bit to get those as well. So it's on our radar for sure.
All right. Any other questions or concerns about safety? If not, we will move to our consent agenda.
This is pretty typical of what you have seen before. I would point out item number 22 and letter B. And the reason I say that is because number one, I'm really proud of our daycare, otherwise known as the Early Learning Center. But the other thing I want to show is Ms. Spinelli actually applied for a grant all on her own independently and yielded about $18,000 for that program. And so just kind of goes to show you people really understand that it takes a try to really make sure we have all the things that we need. And so Ms. Spinelli is no different. So I'm proud of her for that. Item 25, there's 3 policies first read, and I'm just going to briefly talk about the whys behind it. The first has to do with staff contracts and compensation. These change in that one. It's asking for discrepancy by our team. If we need to pay teachers maybe a little bit more this year, having these special education teachers. There are also occasions where teachers come in on retirement already and they can only make a certain amount, and our policy kind of holds us to the minimum teacher salary schedule, and that's really not viable for retired teachers where we have to work with them. So that would be that one. DOAC was an updated OSSBA policy. We had that already. We basically want to update ours that incorporates a lot of the OSSBA language. And then you'll see the parts in red kind of opposite how we usually do it. The parts in red language that we have in our existing policy that we would like to keep. So as you review that, it's an updated policy, but there are some things in there that we think are necessary. And then EJB is suicide prevention policy. It's required by law, and it basically says we're going to make sure we're training our people so they understand warning signs and how to prevent, basically what it says. And then item number 26, again, not new now, but it is review and approval of the capacity report in preparation for the 3rd quarter, starting in January of this school year. And that'll be a recurring item every quarter.
Quick question on that. Where are we at on, capacity? If, say we have an article come out in the newspaper about the transfers and now kind of celebrating our school district. If we had people come,
Right.
what room do we have?
Right. So probably like Carrie talked about it, honestly, except link isn't pulling up. So all it's posted on the website. We're getting pretty close to capacity in some of our.
We are at capacity in quite a few of our grade levels. I'm actually pulling that up right now. I know off the top of my head, we're at capacity at the middle school level in 8th grade. We're at capacity at 9th grade and 10th grade. And then at each building, elementary sites, there are grade levels. There's not a single building that every single grade level is at full capacity, but we're at capacity at least one grade level in every single building.
So I was asked the question because obviously it can start to be a burden because of more kids. And so should we reduce or freeze our capacity? But here's where I'm at with that. We have empty classrooms across the district. I know that article mentioned Jinx and how they're busting, which is, I totally get it. But for us, we have empty classrooms. And so I would rather pursue another teacher to try to take kids versus not take kids in freeze capacity. So, I mean, it's a numbers game, obviously, a lot, but we're here to serve kids.
I agree.
That's where I'm at. So that would be the pursuit. Again, teachers, I actually said in that article, and you probably read it, how teacher shortage continues to be nerve-wracking for everyone. I mean, we started out for the first year, I said 2 teachers, but really it was 1 special ed teacher, 1 speech pathologist. And we were able to reel back in a couple of our retired people. So as we said before, Brenda Sanders and Marilyn Clark were gracious enough to come back in and needed to pay them a little bit more to get them to do that. And then we had a resignation early in the year, and Sandra Boyer stepped up to the plate to do that. So we're blessed in our district because we have people that understand our mission, but at the same time, we're at the place where competency is really important, especially as one that they don't adjunct. And, my jury's out on how I feel about adjunct teachers, honestly, because these guys have some skill sets that don't just come with, somebody that's pulled off the street to get into a classroom. There's a strategy with classroom management and behavior that we're seeing that's increasingly more difficult with kids. And so it is in the back of everybody's mind, mine included. We have, I think, a good environment here, which attracts people. We have a strategy with stipends. You'll see that later of trying to get people to tell us early so we can post out early and get the applicant pool early. That's a strategy. But there really is a teacher shortage in the state of Oklahoma, and it just seems to get increasingly more so. I think it helps that we're a suburban district too. People like being around the town where you can go and have dinner and entertainment and all those things. So I guess time will tell, and we'll still continue to work toward making us attractive. I think the daycare helped. We're talking about a wellness facility for teachers to work out. Potentially, I know Christy and Sean have been trying to access some grant funding to support equipment for that. So anything that we can do to bump up our district to make it more attractive, we need to be doing. So we'll see. All that to say, in capacity, I would like to fill our classrooms up. That's where I'm at.
Any other questions or comments on consent agenda? If not, we would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Make the motion to approve the consent agenda item.
Second.
Motion and a second. Call for a vote, please.
Mullins,
Aye.
Noggle,
Aye.
Wagers, Wagner, Again.
Item 27 is a proposed executive session to discuss employment of a temporary teacher. One, see a need for that. If not, we'll move to item 28, which is the proposed approval of the employment of said teacher.
To approve the employment of temporary teacher.
A motion
One second.
and a second. Any discussion? And we would call for a vote, please.
Mullins,
Aye.
Noggle,
Aye.
Wagers,
Aye.
Magnum, Again.
Item 29 is the proposed approval of our one-time non-recurring stipend payment for the 2022-23 school year to all eligible personnel who meet the following criteria listed on our agenda.
And all of that criteria is exactly the same as it was last year, with the exception of informing us in writing no later than March 24th. So we bumped that date up a month to get it a little bit earlier. Just to give us a little bit of more of a advantage potentially. So
I'll make a motion to approve item 29 as stated.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
What is the approximate value of that?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Dollar amount?
Close to $800,000.
We're worth it.
Oh, absolutely.
Donation.
Very good.
Absolutely.
All right, well, we have the motion and a second, and so we'll call for a vote.
Mullins,
Aye.
Noggle,
Aye.
Wagers, Wagner, Again.
Any matter not known about which could not have been reasonably foreseen prior to posting this meeting. Any announcements? Mary Wood
Okay, yes.
passed away,
Yes, she did.
car accident last week, former educator here,
Former principal at Central Elementary back in the day. Mary Wood, you remember her, Mike, for sure, probably, but anyway, she was in a car wreck. And then a few days later passed. Thank you for bringing it.
So. Okay, with no other announcements, then I will make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Second, no discussion needed. I will call for vote.
Mullins, Cobble, Wagers, Wagner, Done.
Aye. Board, please wait to sign this